The people who will vote in European elections are probably 40 plus, maybe even 50 plus. But the one that all the campaigners want to get on their side, of course, are the youngsters. Starting tomorrow night in Birmingham, they can make a real inroad into that. Luci Hammans joins me now. Luci, welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
You are inviting young people, primarily aged between 15 and 25, to come and take part in a poetry session.
Yes.
On should we or shouldn't we be in the EU. Can you explain that to me a little bit? Because I think people might be going, it's a what? They're doing what?
Yes. Okay, so I work for a company called BeatFreeks, which is a youth engagement organization, and we tend to use arts to address issues in the community. And one of the things that was brought to us was obviously this the referendum that's coming up and the Brexit, the idea around Brexit. And so we organized 3 events, and one of them was a workshop, and this one that will be tomorrow night is a poetry slam. So we'll have spoken word poets. We have 2 headline acts, and they have prepared pieces, one of them for staying in the EU, one of them for leaving the EU, and they will be going head to head, and then the audience will be will be there, and they'll get to vote which ones they're for and which ones they're against, really.
So obviously people of all ages can come, but primarily you're trying to get the young voter, aren't you? You're trying to engage young people to do it.
Absolutely.
Isn't that a mammoth task?
Well, yes and no. I think young people are very engaged, or at least the young people that I have been able to meet have been very engaged and very well. If they're not aware of it, they're aware of the concepts of it, because things like BuzzFeed have had they've had articles about it that go out. So there's more access to information in the internet age, I guess. So they do know a little. Yeah. Okay,
so you had your evening in Handsworth, wasn't it?
Yes, Oaklands.
You had a workshop. What sort of reaction did you get?
It was very positive, you know. Like, I'm a workshop facilitator, so I went in with some questions, and then they basically had to the young people had to put themselves, whether they agree or disagree, and then they had to debate it out amongst themselves. And some of the questions that we put forward were obviously issues that are being addressed with staying in the EU, and it was amazing to see how the young people responded to it, internalized it, applied it into their own life, and then debated amongst each other. The majority of the people there, we were in Handsworth, it was the Oaklands, I think it's Young People's Community Centre, and the age range was about the same. Quite a young group, I guess, 13, 14, 15, and it was fantastic to see them talk about these these topics, you know. But yeah,
because I mean, the trouble has been with the EU all along that, you know, in the early days, all we ever heard was the problems. There were butter mountains, there were wine lakes, there was so on and so on. Everything seemed to be a problem. So what I'm thinking is, have they got a really sort of deep interest in it, or is it a fairly thin veneer?
I think, that's an interesting question. I think they are interested in the deeper questions, so things about free movement and that sort of stuff. Those are the things that they really sink their teeth into. Some of the history behind it has been lost, though. So it's one of those things where we try to combine it intergenerationally. People who would have been a part of the European Commission came down and they spoke to them, and then it was about the young people kind of internalizing it for themselves. But I think.
Okay, so you've had that discussion. What's the thinking about if you have the pro and anti, putting it into poetic form? How is that going to help?
Well, Birmingham has a big poetry scene and a big underground poetry scene, and a lot of those that are in the poetry scene are very politically minded, and they are aware of the situations that are going on, and so a lot of them have a voice and want to speak out about those things. So we figured, why not combine the two, you know, and just get people to come and state. Well, although the poets aren't writing necessarily from their own opinions, they will be representing the opinions of the young people.
Is there anything to suggest that young people will vote? Because as a nation, we don't vote particularly well on European things. We don't vote very well about police and crime commissioners, and we don't vote all that well when it comes to local councils. It's only when it comes to a general election that people turn out, and even then, not in the biggest numbers. So, you know, it's a big chance, this, isn't it, with the referendum, particularly with younger people, because they are the ones going forward that it's all going to, fall in the lap of either way.
It's true, and I think maybe I believe that is what we were hoping to address, that sense of it's coming up to our responsibility now, and we need to remove that culture of it not being cool to vote, and we need to kind of take our opportunities by the hand, I guess.
The people who are going to come and do these poems, I mean, are they talking about what they believe, or are you just saying, no, you're the pro tonight, you are the anti?
Yeah, literally is that. The poets, Leon Presto and Tremendous, are fantastic national poets, let alone local poets, and we gave them what position they'll be standing on, and so it doesn't necessarily reflect their own viewpoints, but it will be interesting to see how they bring it into their art.
Because I'm just thinking, you're putting quite an onus on them, aren't you? If you are going to try and influence people, in the nicest possible sense of using that phrase, influence, by two people standing up and reciting poetry.
Yes, but they've been able to, we've supplied them with research on, because we've been entirely impartial as a company, so we've provided research for and against and tried to give them points on either way, and also obviously supporting them in their own research. And then, like, we trust them as artists, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Because, yeah they'll be, I believe that they'll be able to represent it well.
And whichever side they're on, are there particular areas you've asked them to talk about, or can they just take their pick?
We gave them a couple of points that people were interested in. Like I said, the freedom of movement was a big thing that the young people in the workshops that we did responded to. But obviously there are other points that need to be addressed. So we were like, go for it, go. You can decide whether you want to do the whole plethora of points or whether you want to focus on a few.
Luci Hammans, I don't think I envy you with the task you've got, but it sounds a lot of fun. And
It
just
will
so
be fun.
before we go to the break, let me just tell you, it is at the Millennium Point Cinema Bar, isn't it? Tomorrow evening at 6:30. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Hope you have a good night. I'll see you after the break.